Finland has won the happiest country in the world title for the 5th year in a row, plus other titles in the past such as freest press, least corruption, safest country, most stable country, and so on. These are true and I'm really happy about it. But the problems of Finland won't get any coverage compared to the positives. And if you're moving to Finland, I think you should be aware of the problems that Finland is facing. Payment defaults. In Finnish, this is called maksuhäiriömerkintä. Let's say you have a debt, like a phone plan bill or rent, and you never paid. The creditor or the debt collection agency usually sends out debt collection letters, like payment, reminders, and demands, before you get a payment default entry. And not you won't get a payment default entry just because you're late with the payment. If you just ignore it long enough, you will get one. And this has actually serious consequences to your everyday life. For example, the credit card company can cancel your credit card. It will be much more difficult for you to get credit, for example, a mortgage for your apartment, and it will be much more difficult for you to find a rental apartment and get the home insurance, and sometimes even difficult to get a job. And the problem is that the entry will remain around 2 to 4 years, depending on the case. As you can tell, this will cause a lot of stress and shame for people, because many people think that they failed at life because they have the entry, and some people even think that they are like Class B citizens because of that. At the end of 2021, there were almost 400,000 people with the payment default record. But luckily the number of payment defaults decreased for the first time since 2008. And the biggest age group represented was the 30 to 39 years old.
And unfortunately, almost 10% of young people also have payment default records.
Why do these things happen? Well, first of all, it's just bad financial management. People are not just really aware how much they're spending and how much they earn. And people have started to order things online, buy now, pay later methods. Problems in life, for example, like death of a close one or depression. And also these quickie loans have been also a big issue. Poverty. So this may be surprising. Finland is not a poor country. What the hell is going on? Well, there's two types of poverty. Absolute poverty refers to a state in which the minimum conditions for food, clothing, and housing are not met. This is common in developing countries. But then there's also relative poverty. And this refers to the clear disadvantage of an individual or group compared to the average standard of living or lifestyle of the rest of the population. And this is the type of poverty we have in Finland. And there is no clear definition of poor person in Finland. But the European Anti-Poverty Network says that the definition of poverty is generally based on low income, which is 60% of the median disposable income of households. And in 2019 for Finland, the limit for low income in a single person household was around 15k, and that equals around 1,300 euros per month. And around 12% of Finns are in this low income bracket. That's a lot of Finns. And sometimes, for example, in Kallio, you may have seen these long queues in the street. There are these organizations that give these free food bags for poor people. And there are around 100 to 200,000 Finns who have to use these free food bags annually. What are the reasons for this? Unemployment, lacking basic welfare, too expensive lifestyle, payment defaults, getting into debt. And most likely, if the parents had problems with this, they are usually inherited to the children as well. Alcoholism. There are always many jokes that Finns are drunk and they like to drink. Well, is it true? Well, yes and no. First of all, the drinking culture in Finland. Many people tend to praise and encourage and find alcohol a very prestigious thing. So when I was a school kid, I noticed that my peers started to drink around the age of 15, and I found that really weird. Because in my home, we never had alcohol, my parents were never drinking, and I never saw them drunk. And later I just discovered that this is actually not the case for many. And when I was a student at the university, drinking was always involved in parties and events. However, it seems they have toned it down a little bit. And there are reports that 216,000 Finns are alcoholics, which accounts 8% of men and 2% of women. And more than 500,000 Finns drink in a way that exceeds the risk limits. And the problem is that the alcoholics don't tell about their problem. We don't really dare to speak about our problems. I found a really interesting survey called Juomatapatutkimus Drinking Habit Survey, which is done every 8 years. There were some really interesting insights. First of all, in Finnish drinking culture, it's rare to combine alcohol with midday or evening meals during the week. And this is true. In Finland, we don't have a beer or glass of wine with lunch or dinner. And drinking more often than once a week, however, is far more common than it was a generation ago. And drinking to get drunk is still common and accepted in the Finnish drinking culture. This is definitely true and feels bad, man. And alcohol consumption is very unevenly distributed in the population. Of those surveyed, the highest 10% drink about half of all the alcohol, and the least 50% drink less than 10% of all alcohol. There were also some comparisons to other European countries. Alcohol is not used very often in Finland, but higher one-off consumption is more common than in most countries. So in short, we don't drink that often, but when we do, we get wasted. According to some statistics, the consumption is going down all the time, so the trends are looking better. Domestic violence. Unfortunately, domestic violence is a big issue in Finland, and according to Statistics Finland, in 2020, there were around 10,000 victims reported for domestic violence offense. Of adult victims, 75% were women, and of all victims, 21% around were minors. And Yle also reported that every third woman has experienced domestic violence at some point in their life. Finland has also received comments from international human rights bodies for not stepping up in their game. And the big problem is that many of these are not reported because of shame. You may be ashamed of yourself, ashamed of your partner, or ashamed that someone will find out. Again, I guess this is like the Finnish pride that you have to survive on your own when there are problems. Reasons for domestic violence are usually the problems when they were kids, so maybe their parents also did domestic violence to them. Most often alcohol was involved. What was kind of shocking to me that many victims also belittle the problem. Ei se mun kumppani nyt niin väkivaltainen ole. No okei, se on kaatanut mut ja heittänyt portaista alas, mutta ei varsinaisesti lyödä. Tai on se lyönyt, mutta ei nyrkillä. Tai on se lyönyt nyrkillä, mutta ei tullut näkyviä jälkiä. Tai tuli näkyviä jälkiä, mutta ei tarvinnut mennä lääkäriin. There was also an interesting mention about foreign women in Finland, because there are not many foreign women who are using the support helplines or the support groups, so they may not understand the Finnish society and its support network. Not forgetting the language barrier, bullying at school, koulukiusaaminen. And I know about this firsthand because I was bullied when I was back in school. It was mostly verbal and some humiliating stuff, not physical stuff like that. And the reason for this probably was that I got good grades and I was a little bit more childish back in the day. The Mannerheim League of Child Welfare reports that every 10th child is bullied. What are the problems here? First of all, many of the bullying is taken online to social media and it's very difficult to see or, for example, teacher to intervene. Yet another big problem is that the teachers are too busy. Resolving the bullying cases will just take time from other important tasks. And very sad reason is that some teachers belittle the problem. And it seems there's also this snitching culture that if you go and tell about the bullying to teachers, things can just get worse. So what has Finland done to make things better? I actually found this Kiva Koulu system. So this is an anti-bullying action program developed at the University of Turku. And according to researchers, it's one of the most effective. They basically give schools and teachers forms and best practices, video clips, posters, all these kind of things. It seems it's also exported abroad, but I don't have personal experience on this because this didn't exist when I was at school. However, I found a lot of criticism towards this system. I'm gonna read a few stories. 3 boys in my class beat me up on the way to school in the woods behind the school. After that, I didn't go to school for a couple of days because I didn't want to go there. When I came back, someone had told about the beating and I had to talk to the Kiva team together with the bullies. Eventually, I had to shake hands with the bullies and everything was done, except that it's still not done for me. I cannot forgive them. But I knew I had to say everything's done so I could be at peace. I hate those guys. Here's another one. I myself had been bullied for all 9 primary school years and it was never properly addressed. Time and time again I was made to apologize to bullies. Everything always turned into my own fault. No matter what I did, it was my fault. Kiva system is driving an important thing, but simply the punishing methods are not enough. It is a victory for the bully if the bullied has to change schools. It is a victory for the bully if he or she gets expelled from school for a couple of days. After all, those are just 2 extra days off from the school. Mental health problems. It's been stated that the mental health problems cost the Finnish society around 11 billion euros annually. 53% of the disability pensions are caused by mental health problems. At least every 5th has a mental health problem in a year, and every 5th person gets depression at some point in their life. That is not good. Again, what are the reasons? Poverty, alcohol problems, difficult relations with the parents, bullying, and solitude. Sounds familiar, right? Only half of the people actually get the treatment they need. And there's a big problem, especially among the young. So according to the hoitotakuu, this is like treatment guarantee, the people under the age of 23 have to get treatment within 3 months. Reality shows that this is not the case. Iltalehti reported at the end of 2021 that there are hundreds of young people who have to wait longer than 3 months to get treatment. The attitudes are also a little bit challenging. People may say, otat vaan itseäsi niskasta kiinni, syöt terveellisesti, harrastat liikuntaa, kyllä se siitä. The problem is that people feel hopeless, lonely, too busy, and it's difficult to cope with the increasing standards at work and private life. Social exclusion. The statistics I found, they can only measure the risk factors, but who is actually socially excluded? Difficult to say. In the 2019, the estimated number of young socially excluded were about 60,000 people. That's a lot of young people. Most of them were men. Around 3 to 10% of young have multiple risk factors to be socially excluded. What are these risk factors? Low education, long-term unemployment, livelihood problems, mental health issues. Sound familiar? And again, these are heritable. So if the parents have these kind of problems, most likely they're passed on to their children. Birth rate. Finns are becoming extinct. The birth rates have been declining for the past decade, except in 2021 there was a notch upwards. But still, the population increase is heavily dependent on immigration. Otherwise, the total population would decline. And good to know that this is a global problem, not only in Finland. So why Finns are not having kids? First of all, people are not really sure about the economic and mental responsibilities having a child brings. Plus, of course, you need to have a partner. So there are a lot of single people in Finland. Also, many postpone having children in their 30s. So people first want to travel, get a good job, get a good education. And also, there are more and more people who simply don't want to have kids. And this, of course, means that later there will be more old people. And this can either cause cuts in pension or increase the pension payments from the employed. And to tackle this problem, the government of Finland tries to make it more easy to immigrate to Finland. As we saw, many of these problems are going the right direction, but there are still a lot to do to make Finland an even better place to live. And do you know why you will hate your life in Finland? I recommend to check this video out and find out.